Hi, my name is Emily Cormier, and I chose the painting Poppies by Claude Monet, who was a really famous Impressionist artist, most well known for his water lilies and his garden that we read about. Um, he lived from 1840 until 1926, and this specific painting was painted in 1873 while he was living in a suburb in Paris. The dimensions are 50 centimeters high and 65 centimeters wide. It was first exhibited in 1874 at the first Impressionist exhibition in Paris that was held in a photographer's studio. And a lot of other really famous Impressionist artists also exhibited their work at this event as well. One of them was Paul Cézanne. Currently, it is exhibited in Musée d'Orsay. So what are some Impressionist characteristics about this specific painting? So this landscape was painted in plein air somewhere outside of Paris, probably near his home in the suburbs, somewhere around there. So a lot of these artists of the time would paint outside directly in the scene that they were looking at, and they would try to paint very quickly to capture the light in the shadows. So that was something that Monet focused a lot on in his work. He would paint the same scene in different times of day to capture the different light and shadows. Another thing that he did was he used bright colors. So you can see like the bright colors of like the red poppies in the painting that I'll show in a sec. Or like the bright blue sky or the dark green trees. That was really important to Monet to capture. He put a lot of detail in the texture of nature, so the trees, the clouds, the field, the flowers, all that. But he didn't put a lot of detail into like the faces of the different figures. So this painting, as I said before, depicts a field of poppies with a woman and child in the foreground, as well as another woman and child in the background. So the background consists of, and you'll see it in a second, the background consists of a line of dark green trees and a bright blue sky with white puffy clouds. And between the trees, you can see that there's a small square-shaped building. So here's the painting. There are a number of different brushstrokes in this painting. The field consists of uniform wispy brushstrokes, while the poppies are made of blobs of red, similar to the larger brushstrokes that construct the trees and the clouds. I think the wispy brushstrokes in the field give the impression of wind, which is really interesting to see in a painting. You can see that the horizon line is in the background, where the dark green trees are. Light and shadows are depicted very clearly. I think it's most noticeable in the clouds, where the bright white shows light, while the darker off-whitish gray color shows the shadows. You can also see light and shadows in the trees and field. The darker greens show the shadows where the sun is not present, while the bright greens show the light, especially in the tallest tree, that would most likely to be more in the sun. The different sides of the petals and the poppies are also different shades of red to show the light and shadows as well. Overall, the colors in the foreground, other than the bright red poppies, are muted in comparison to the dark green trees, blue skies, and white clouds in the background. In terms of depth and perspective, the trees appear to be the same size as the people in the foreground. The building in the background also looks very small to give the illusion of distance. The field appears to be uneven as well and shows many hills. The colors in the distance of the field are a slightly different shade of green, which also shows depth. So why did I choose this painting? I chose this painting because I've actually seen it a couple times at Musée d'Orsay, and I always found it to be very beautiful, especially with the bright red of the poppies and the blue skies and the really striking colors, yet there's not a lot of detail in the actual painting itself. I always feel like that's very interesting how the colors really show the details. So I think a strength would be the bright colors that show nature in the scene and really highlight how much Monet loved nature and loved being in nature, and he loved to portray it in his paintings. A weakness, I think, might be the dark green in the trees. I always find that those don't quite fit with the other colors in the scene. I find that the other muted tones and bright reds and blues are much more appealing than the dark green. I also find it really interesting that Monet chose to include people in this landscape, even though his focus is usually nature. Um, so yeah, that's why I chose this painting.